Hello everyone, we are playing some Ikoria Zoo today. So Invasion of Ikoria is a battle that says when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a graveyard for a non-human creature with mana value X or less and put it into the graveyard. Okay, so for 3 mana, this means for 3 mana, you can search your library for Death Shadow. For if you pay 4 mana, you can search your library for a Territorial Kavu, Tarmogoyf, or the Vampire Hexmage. If you search your library for a Vampire Hexmage, you can use it to immediately flip this battle into the 8/8 Zilrota Apex of Ikoria dinosaur with reach that says each non-human creature you control can assign combat damage as though it wasn't blocked. So the point of this is finding the Vampire Hexmage for 4 mana and making all of your creatures unblockable, and all the creatures played in this deck are pretty large, like Shadow, Kavu, Goyf mostly, and this way we want to we can just attack a bit when we can stay back and then swing for one big attack to finish off the opponent, and that's it. So the trick is very good, it often works. A lot of the decks in matchup just rely on chumping your big creatures, and then you put the Ikoria on field and they can't do anything about it. It's also 8/8, so it dodges the Unholy Heat and other burn-based removal. Okay, so to support that Shadowwind deck, we had to remove the Sign of Jacob because it's a non-bow with that Shadow. And to better support it, we have some Totsis plus a lot of fetches to be able to put our life total low enough to play Shadow early and consistently. Okay, so we have some zoo staples, of course, like Territorial Kavu, Tribal Flames, Lightning Bolt, Leyline Binding, but also there is Stubborn Denial, Ragavan as the best 1-drop in the game, great in the old zoo decks, and that's it. Okay, so you can put maybe like some creatures on the sideboard that can be tutored with Invasion of Ikoria, for example, but I decided against it for now. But it is definitely possible, like a 2 mana creature, what is it called? The werewolf that can kill artifact enchantment and flip into the werewolf. Forgot the name, but like you can easily play this over 4th tier Sunder or something similar to that. And that's it. Okay, so we can now start the league and see how it goes. So on the sideboard, we have some artifact enchantment hate, some more cheap counter spells, some more removals, graveyard hate, explosives. So I've played the league, finished first league I played with this, finished 4-1. Deck felt pretty good. Was really happy about it, and lost unfortunately to misplay. Lost one game, so it was really close to trophy. But yeah, bad play in the match 2 costed me the trophy. Okay, so let's see. Obviously, of course, Tarmogoyf is very good with Totsis. So first game I played against Blue Tron. Turn 1, Totsis discarded the Karn, and I was able to play turn 2 Goyf. I went for the 2 black sources. I had a Hexmage in hand and the Binding to play the next turn. My opponent went for the Binding, and I really wanted to get rid of it immediately. I'm playing a Shadow deck, so I wanted to fetch down to the low on life. My opponent really doesn't have a way to pressure me with life total, so it is pretty safe to do so. I went for the Ragavan dash here. Attack my opponent for 6, put them on 7 life, and play the Vampire Hexmage. Pass the turn. Opponent goes for the Thirst for Knowledge. They draw 3 cards, discard Chalice of the Void, but don't have a solution for a lot of damage in my hand, and they decide to concede. So that was a quick game 1 against Mono Blue Tron. Okay, so second, I decided to keep a creatureless hand because I had Tear Thunder plus Totsis. So if I draw one creature, I'm in a decent situation. So I went for the Totsis here. Discarded Dismember, leave them with Remand and Thirst for Knowledge in hand. So didn't draw a creature, so I was forced to just pass the turn and see what they do. Try to find a creature next turn. Okay, my opponent plays the island. They go for Thirst for Knowledge. I still don't have a creature, but I was able to counter Thirst at least. They naturally find a third Tron piece, so at this point, game was pretty difficult for me because I wasn't able to find a creature to keep to start putting some pressure on opponent. I don't have a companion in this version, so didn't have much going on. Opponent goes for the expedition map, finds the Hole of Storm, a giant which will eventually easily win the game for the opponent, as I don't really have a solution for it because Leyland Binding says no land, and Tear Thunder also says no land permanent. So I did draw a Kavu, but opponent obviously had some solutions for it. So they just went for the repel. End of turn, decided to attack me with a hole. Put me on a 4 life, which is a lethal range for the next turn to attack with the hole. And as I said, I just don't have good solutions for the hole. I have all this removal, but everything says non-land permanent, so I can't really do much about it. My opponent goes for the thirst and attacks with hole. I have to jump for with Kawu, and I don't have a solution for the next turn, so I concede the game. Let's go to the match 3. Okay, I had to mulligan this to the 6 cards, put one land on top, keep a very good hand with the 2 Kawus, Tribal Flames and Stubborn Denial. This is really good hand. Kawu is really good against them, really aggressive. And I have 2 of them in case they succeed to bounce first one or something. Okay, they play Chalice of the Void. So I can't play. I had a good play here with the Totsis, Hold the Stubborn Denial, but they played Chalice, so I just went for the second Kabu. Wasn't able to hold interaction, so just discard my 1 mana cards, and I have the Tribal Flames for the next turn, which is lethal if they don't have other interaction. So I discard 2 of my 1 mana spells, find the double Tribal Flames. So even if they have counter for the first one, still have the second, and that was the game. Okay, so that was quick games against Tron. This deck is very fair. Zoo in general, all versions are really favorable to win against Tron. Okay, so we will watch the defeat in the end. Let's go to the wins first. Okay, I had to mulligan this one. One landers are really not keepable. So I kept the 3 lands, Bolt Binding and Territorial Cowl, which was pretty cool. I decided not to bolt the Hierarch, but just go for the Triumph on turn 1, play 5/5 Cowl on 2. It ended up being a good decision because Hierarch wasn't really very important for this match. They didn't have a Yagmoth, and it really was. It would be a completely different game if they had it, but here I was able to kill the Grist and kill the Young Wolf, and like Undying creatures are really good in their deck, so I really wanted to get rid of that one before they're able to chord for the grist or whatever. My opponent still continued attacking me with the double hierarch. So Innkeeper lets them draw a lot of cards if they even if they are low on life. So I had two Stubborn Denials in hand, which were definitely useless at this point, and I was in a really bad position, but had a lot of decent top decks, and my opponent also didn't have much here, just a couple of Hierarchs and 1/1 creatures attacking. Still better than me so far. Okay, so it was a really a close game, and I didn't get almost any draws until very late in the game. Opponent again attacked with Dry Arbor, and now I start top decking well. So first I got the Death Shadow. I really needed the Shadow here because to stop or really need that large creature to stop opponent's attacks. And then I got the Invasion of Ikoria, which is just great in this matchup because opponent has so many chump blockers. So I just find the Hex Mage. And I still have the Stubborn Denial. I can attack with my Death Shadow here. My opponent is not able to block it. So I put my opponent on 12 life and threaten with lethal for the next turn. Opponent does have a Chord to go for the kill, to go for the combo, but I have the Stubborn Denial. And they are on 0 cards, top deck a card, it is not a solution, so they concede. So just one Shadow from the top of the deck and one Invasion of Ikoria easily won me this match that I usually just would have no chance in, and yeah. Okay, so in the match 2, I really wanted to have a full mana, so I went for the Death Shadow. I went for, sorry, for to keep 3 lands in hand and the Death Shadow and put the Goyf on the bottom because I just wasn't able to fuel Goyf early. But yeah, I wasn't able also to play a Shadow early, and my opponent resolved the Grist. My Stubborn Denial doesn't work against it, and the Bolt doesn't kill it, so it was a pretty bad position for me. I'm now able to play my Shadow as a 1/1, but it's definitely not a great play. Opponent goes for a Grist to kill my Shadow. I bought Grist in response to get rid of the Grist if possible, so at least I did that, but yeah, I was now on 9 life and still had a couple of top decks, but they didn't happen. So with the Blood Artist on the field and no solution for it, this was a game over. Okay, so let's just check the game 3 of this win number 2, match 2. Okay, so much easier playing first. I have the Bolt, I have Kavu, I have Goyf. Opponent goes for the Hierarch again. This time I kill it. I don't want them to go for the Grist on turn 2. I'm playing first, so trying to be aggressive here. My opponent plays a second Hierarch. They had a Grist, so that was a good decision. I later discarded the Grist with Totsis and played my Goyf. Opponent unfortunately top decked another Grist. So I just used my bolt to get rid of it, and then I was able to cast to find another Goy from the top, hold the bolt. I decided, I don't know why, to play the bolt on their upkeep, which wasn't really a good decision because now they were able to go for the chord on 3, which maybe wasn't that bad because I had a solution for grist in my hand. It may be better for them to use the chord in this situation than it is for me to just for them to be able to use it later to find maybe what is it called? Yagmut, of course. Yeah, so they find Young Wolf plus Eldritch Evolution, which means they get another grist, which was definitely annoying. So important thing is Invasion of Ikoria also finds can tutor a creature from the graveyard, which means you can constantly just keep returning your Vampire Hexmage and getting the 8/8 on the field. So I was in a really bad position. I blocked the Hapatra here to survive on 1 life, and I got the best possible top deck. In this situation, it was Death Shadow, and you can obviously see that in a with usual versions of a deck, I would never be able to win this game, but this way I just one-shotted my opponent for like 20 damage here, and that was game over. So one shadow from the top meant game over because it has a very good interaction with this invasion of Ikoria, and it feels like really good. Okay, so that was game 2 against Yagmot, where you could really see Ikoria shine. So let's watch another game. This was match number 3, win number 3. Kept a pretty decent hand. The Ragavan plus double Goyf plus Tribal Flames, it's pretty good. Especially if Ragavan dies, then Goyf can get really big. Which happens a lot. So I go for the attacks with Ragavan. Ragavan connects, which is also pretty good for me. And I decide just to play my 1/2 Tarmogoyf in this situation and to leave my treasure token and the Zagot in hand. Opponent attacks kills my Ragavan, sorry, but now I'm able to kill Vren, and Ragavan is in graveyard, which means my Goyfs are now 3/4. If I flames the opponent next turn, then I can grow them to 4/5, which is pretty relevant. So I go for Invasion of Ikoria, but I have to be careful. I must kill the Teferi first. I can't cast my Invasion if Teferi is on the field. So I just go for it. I shouldn't maybe done this, but they play maybe like, I don't know, some counters like this, that new 2-mana counter. My opponent goes for the Archon here, they find it, and unfortunately they're on 14 life, which I miss damage to kill them with the Zilrota, but I top deck Lightning Bolt to kill my opponent with Zilrota on the same turn. Okay, so that was game 1 against Creativity, so I won in spite of them resolving the Archon. Just had too much damage there, and again you could see just how good was this Zilrota's ability, where it doesn't matter if you have Chompers, it deals 8 damage anyway, and it's a lot of damage. So okay, so game 2, I have multiple options here. But I really don't want them to bolt my Goyf, so I just play my Hex Mage as a 2/1. I still wasn't able to cast a Shadow because I was too high on life. So I had another fetch, so I just hold the Leyline Binding and cast my Goyf now as a blocker for their Goblin Shaman. Opponent plays land, doesn't go for the attacks. I did fetch for Steam Vents here because I went for the Steam Vents because I wanted to play both Shadows and hold the Bolt plus Binding, so that was the reason why I didn't go for the second green. I really wanted to be able to hold all my interaction. In this position, I went for the attacks with Go if opponent jumps. Play my 2/2 Shadow and hold Bolt plus Binding. I think this was really important. Their Kiki-Jiki flips, they play the expressive iteration, can do much there. They find the Scalding Tarn plus put card in their hand. And I killed the Goblin Shaman token before the attacks. I still have the Leyline Binding. I go for the attack with the Goyf. And then I was able to play the Kavu. My opponent is on 10 life. I'm still holding the Leyland Binding. I mean, if they have creativity, they can target 2 creatures, but yeah, there's nothing I can do there. So I did find another green source, which meant I was able to play the Invasion of Ikoria. Again, find the Vampire Hexmage from my graveyard, flip the Ikoria into Zilrota 8/8 dinosaur that prevents my opponent uh, from blocking, and I discard the Leyline Binding. This way I grow my Goyf to 5/5, and I deal damage directly to their face, inspire them blocking with the Kiki-Jiki for the lethal damage. And you can see just how important was this Zilrota or Ikoria in all these games. Just you have such a large creatures, play such large creatures in your deck like Kavu, Goyf, Death Shadow, this one, and like making them all unblockable is obviously can be pretty good. And there are some really good examples in this league. And that was it. That was win number 4. So let's check out the next game. Okay, so I had to mulligan to 5. I kept the Flames and the Goyf, which wasn't really a good keep. I did find the Leyland Binding. Leyland Binding was a good top deck here. Well, you can never know if they have a Caldra in hand or not. I decided to get rid of this Stoneforge immediately to prevent early pressure from them with the Sigarda's aid and whatever. So they just go for the construct tokens. This means I get a bit more time to try to top deck something. I go for the bolt here, try to get rid of the construct, and I do this. They play the second drum, go for the paladin, go for the hammer, go for the equip. I have Stubborn Denial plus Leyland Binding to get rid of their paladin, but they had 0 cards in hand because I mulliganed to 5 cards, and they got some pretty good draws from the top of their deck, like second paladin and the second Colossus Hammer, and that just wasn't beatable, so I just concede the game. Yeah, no point. They have like same next turn a lethal with Instant Nexus, so that was it. Okay, so sorry, wrong one. Okay, we can watch this one first. Never mind. Okay, so this was actually game 3 in this match. I have I think combination of discard plus removal plus really impactful creatures like Territorial Cow is very good strategy against Hammer. Also, my opponent mulligan this one like I did last game. So I was able to discard the Stoneforge Mystic, leaving them with the Paladin in hand. And that was their only card at this point. So they go for attack here. I just exiled the Shadow Spear. and find my land. I didn't have much at this point too, just a binding and a stubborn denial. But it was enough. They didn't have any pressure, just a gingerbrute. Paladin in hand, but I have solution for Paladin with my Leyland binding. Also, if I top deck a creature, any creature at this point, Stubborn Denial also becomes a very good card. And there I got the Dead Shadow, so my Stubborn Denial is now active and I also have a Leyland binding. So pretty good position for me. Opponent goes for the March, but I have the Stubborn Denial to protect the Shadow. They go for another attack with the Gingerbrute, but they need like 6 more attacks like this one, which is not good enough. Opponent still has Pure Steel Paladin in hand, but they keep it. I top deck a Force of Vigor, which is definitely very good. Not even needed that much, but just additional solution. My opponent decides against blocking here, against attacking here, just go for the blocks. I go for the Force of Vigor, still holding the Leyland binding. They have Surge, so again, still Paladin was their only card in hand at this point. I go for the attacks again, put my opponent on 2 life. They have they find a hammer plus Paladin. But I have Tear Asunder, I have Leyland Binding. It doesn't really matter much what I do here because I left them with just a Gingerbrute on the field and they really can't do much. They don't play Blacksmith skill, so can't find it for a lethal with Gingerbrute. Maybe they do, so this wasn't a great play, but yeah, I think they don't. Okay, so that was it. We can now watch this game 2 I accidentally skipped. Okay, so let's watch the last game against Hammer here. Okay, so I was playing first this one. I had a Cow and a Goef plus Chain to the Rocks, so pretty decent. Cow can come in early and just cycle some of these lands from hand for better cards. Okay, so I'll definitely go for the Cow here. They find Hammer with Stoneforge, plus put Sigarda's Aid on the field. I decided to get rid of the Stoneforge. And my opponent decides against attacking with Inkpot Nexus, which would be lethal for them, but I bluffed having a spell, and they didn't go for it. They were afraid of some interaction, so, which means they probably had some protection spell in hand or something like that. I went for the Goiv here as a blocker or possible attacker for the next turn. Yeah, this wasn't maybe like I should have gone for the bolt on my turn. Now this meant they have surge for. I said before they probably have surge and they had it, but surge just gives protection to the permanents they have at that moment on the field, which means if they play hammer, I can still target it with my binding. So that was okay. I didn't have problems with it. So in response to the hammer targeting the paladin, I just play the binding and my opponent decides to concede. Yeah, maybe they shouldn't conceded at this point. They didn't even draw a card, whatever. But whatever. Okay, so they conceded, and I won the game 3. So that was it. Okay, so okay, so this was game 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we watched everything, so we can now watch the defeat. Defeat was against blue-white control, and I did a very bad play. You will see I missed the trophy because I was a bit I had played a bit lazy, sloppy. Okay, so I was playing first. I had a pretty good hand. Turn 2 cow plus stubborn denial, shadow, flames, binding, pretty kind of perfect hand actually. So pretty hard to lose this one. So I go for the unless my opponent of course plays dress down in the main. But they didn't, and they also skipped a land drop, which was very good news for me. I was able to attack with Cow, but they played a Solitude, which was also very bad news for me because I had Death Shadow in hand, which just and I just gained 5 life, which means I won't be playing this Shadow soon. So I went for the Ikoria here, find a second green source to play my Ragavan. I needed really any threats. My opponent plays the Leyland Binding, so they kind of get back into the game a bit. I decided to go for the Leyland Binding here. My opponent has the Fairy, but I have the Stubborn Denial to prevent it. So they just go for another Solitude to get rid of the Ragavan. I play the Totsis, discard the Brennan 6 and leave them with just Endurance in hand. And they have 0 green mana, which means they're far from playing it. So they just go Kahira to hand, which was logical. I find another Goyf, which is very good at this point because I have the Stubborn Denial, and they find the second green source, which was also decent for them. So I just go for the attacks. Opponent, I attack the Zilrota. Opponent decides not to play the Endurance. They just pass the turn. Well, obviously, only thing they can play here is Endurance, so I don't mind it. And my opponent just conceded the game. Okay, so that was the game one. Opponent was a bit screwed, which helped, but also I got rid of everything they had. Discarded good stuff, countered the Fairy, and yeah, so that would be a win even if opponent wasn't wanna screwed in the beginning. Okay, so I have just 2 lands here, but I'm able to go turn 1 Totsis, turn 2 Goyf. I think when you can do this, you mostly just do it. And so I discarded the counter spell, so they can't deal with my... they can counter my Goyf, but I had Tira Sanders for the Leyland Binding, and they just go for the draw 2 on their turn. I just exile one of I just exiled one of the bindings. And I don't my Goyf was too small here, right? To use the Stubborn Denial, so I wasn't able to do it. I had 2 Ikorias here. Ikorias is pretty good. I found a Territorial Cow here. I know my opponent has Leyland Binding. And if I find a Hex Mage, I need to use it immediately to kill the Ikoria. But if I find Kavu, this means I can attack Ikoria and get another creature. And the 8/8 dinosaur just wasn't that impactful here as in previous games, and they still had Leyland Binding plus Supreme Verdict plus the Fairy Time Reveler, so it was a really hard game for me, this one. I did kill Omnat, play the cow, they still have Binding in hand though. And the Verdict, so not also Vren and 6 on 7. They counter my bolt on Vren. I try to bolt him to prevent him from ulting, but opponent find make a Vren 6 emblem, and after making Vren 6 emblem, it was pretty much over. They had like infinite counter spells with this much mana, and yeah, it's yeah, I can't deal with this, so I conceded. And we can now watch game 3. In this game 3, I had a misplay. So this was at the beginning of the league, but if I had done this better, I could have gotten the trophy. I started with the Ragavan, was playing first, so pretty good start. Ragavan into Kavu. I also had a denial, and the bolt opponent uses the solitude here to get rid of my Ragavan, which was I didn't care that much about it because I had Kavu on turn 2, which is my main threat and best threat in most of these matchups. I make my Kavu 4/4, play the Savite Triumph, discard the Stubborn Denial, play my Goif. Unfortunately, they find another Solitude. This was really important point of this match, and I played Totsis, discarded the Omnat. They just had 2 lands at this point, so it was pretty good situation for me. I decided to go Bolt Face. My opponent unfortunately top decked Supreme Verdict from the top, and now I was still in a great position. I needed anything. I still have a Stubborn Denial in hand, which means if I get a creature here, any creature with a power of 4 or more, a Stubborn Denial becomes real good. I find the Ragavan, but opponent had a counter spell, then put Kahira into hand next turn. I find Tear Sunder. Tear Sunder is like fine. It's not great. I really needed a threat here, but Tear Sunder still kills a creature, so it's okay. I exile the Kahira. And finally, find the Shadow, but I'm in a situation where I can play it, and the Shadow isn't that great of threat against a Solitude deck, but at least my opponent already played 2 Solitudes. So I get to resolve my Death Shadow, but unfortunately Shadow is not a 4/4. It's just a 2/2, which means my Stubborn Denial is not online, so I can't use it to counter a removal spell like this one. My opponent plays land, and we are now both on 1 card in hand, and I top decked another land. And yeah, it was a real top deck war, really close game, and I had an opportunity to probably win this game, but I wasted it. Okay, so I got the cow here. Cow was excellent, and finally I got the Stubborn Denial online, which was excellent, which was exactly what I wanted. But my opponent also top decked stuff they needed, and they went for the dress down. So I stubborn denial it, but they had March to kill my Kavu. So double removal. They also get to draw a card from the dress down, which was pretty good for them. Yeah, I played the Totsis here. I think yeah, this was not great. Definitely, I just needed to hold my Totsis, but they did have 2 cards in hand, so it did make some sense to cast it on 2 cards. But yeah, not a great decision. So I definitely didn't want to cast the second one. I wanted to hold it. Wanted to hold the second one when I draw a creature, and I did draw it. So I went for Totsis there, and so they have just Spara Headquarters and a Misty in hand. And I used my Vampire Hex Mage immediately, which was the mistake I was talking about. It was just a lazy mistake. I did it. I could have done it on their turn, just flip it end of their turn and attack them. On my turn, they were on 7 lives, so that was lethal. And they cycled the Spara and found a prismatic ending to get rid of my Zilrota, which would otherwise probably be lethal. And yeah, so they didn't have much, so that was definite big mistake. and now I got the land from the top, and they started cycling the Spada, which meant that at this point the game is now over. And I did got finally an 8/8 Death Shadow, but yeah, now they have a Vren Emblem, and yeah, that's it. Okay, so really a bad mistake, kind of a lazy mistake. I just played it immediately after the Totsis, and there was just absolutely uh, no point to do it like this, and it would be very hard for them to deal with end of turn Ikoria unless they draw a counterspell, of course. Okay, so that was it. I was really happy with the deck. Invasion of Ikoria was amazing and made it able for me to win some games that otherwise I just wouldn't be able to win with the normal Death Shadow builds. That was always often a problem without a Scion in deck, just no evasion. Scion usually gives Goif and Kavu a trample, which imitates what is Ikoria doing, but Ikoria is really doing it good, and it works really well with the Death Shadow. You can often find it played for 3 mana and find just this big creature that can later really end the game quickly when you once you flip this Ikoria. And that's it. Okay, so thank you for watching. If you like the video, click a like, click subscribe, comment in the video. Also on my YouTube channel, there is now a Discord link where you can watch all the daily brews before they go to YouTube. And that's it. Okay, so that's it for today, and goodbye.